our generation is not going to be the ones that get famous on one game, right? You get known in the industry, and I tell my students this. I'm like, just show up, just be around, just be part of communities.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 117 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. I'm your host, Chris, joined every week by Pumpkin, who's right here driving me crazy, Baby, who's on the couch taking a nap, our fun guests in chat, and of course, every week we bring a special guest. This week's guest is returning friend Chris Totten, a professor at Kent State, and also Kent State University, apologies. Also author of several books. How are you doing, Chris?
Good. How about you?
I am all right. It has been a year, but we're here. We're making it through, I think.
I think. Yes.
So we're in August here. We got a couple of weeks before fall semester begins. Are you ready?
I think so. We have our kickoff for faculty tomorrow. The animation and game design program is now part of the School of Art at Kent State, so that's exciting. And
What was it
yeah,
previously?
classes start Monday, so that's neat. Yeah, lots of cool, exciting things going on.
Awesome. Yeah, we got a lot. So first up, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that GDEX is coming up in less than 2 months on October 15th through the 18th. So that's going to be here in beautiful Columbus, Ohio. We have our summer sale going on right now. So if you want discounted tickets, that ends on August 31st. And of course, we always offer discounted tickets for students, IGA members, and veterans. But make sure you go to thegdex.com. So don't forget the THEGDEX.com to check that out. We'll be posting a lot of our speakers and experiences and stuff regularly over the next couple of weeks. And so, yeah, we're excited to do that. We're trying some new stuff. I think it's going to be a good time, and the industry is a mess. So if you just want to come and commiserate with fellow colleagues, have a drink or eat a gummy and sit next to a fire pit or whatever, what better weekend to do that? Alrighty. So, Chris, I hope we're going to see you at GDEX, I hope. We haven't really officially confirmed anything on talks or anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're bringing, like we always do, Little Nemo and the Nightmare Fiends. So that's exciting. We are looking at going into early access very imminently here, maybe, I don't know, October-ish. Um, we're not, because it's early access and not a full launch yet. So basically, like, we're going to put our Act 1 of our game, which is just going to be like the first half of it. That's going to be the early access. So we're excited to finally get it into people's hands like that, and not just have it be convention fodder.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So you are doing early access. What are you hoping to get out of early access? I always ask people that when they're making that jump.
So the playtesting so like you could go on Steam and look at the game right now and to go to playtesting. We pretty regularly let people into the public playtest. From that, we've been able to get a ton of bugs fixed. We've been able to get and so we kind of wanted that to keep occurring for early access. But putting it in early access then helps it be an actual product that people can go get, rather than just the playtest version. So, yeah, I mean, we're hoping to get it kind of do an initial soft launch again while we're still building content. But and then at some point it'll be a free update when we finish like Act 2, and that'll be pretty much the rest of the game. So
Nice. We got a question from the audience. Do you have a target wish list count prior to early access?
Uh, I'm not the one managing that, so
You don't have anything in your heart.
I mean, I don't know. I think people
More
always
is
say
better.
like, yeah, more's better. Yeah, please go wish list it. Um, no, I mean, I think like people always say, I don't know, 17 to 20K is where you should be going, and like we've been doing pretty good numbers towards that goal. But again, tell your friends, tell two friends, and then they'll tell two friends, and then they'll tell two friends.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't looked up, everyone's looking for like the number or the formula for success, and there really isn't one in life. Like in games, there isn't one in life, but uh, I try to every so often look at like the rough conversion rate of wish lists to, actual purchases or whatever, because it tends to be pretty low unless you have a really actively engaged audience. So traditionally, I've just told people it's usually in the 5 to 10% conversion range. So that's just something I know people ask. They're like, well, you got X number of wish lists. How many are going to purchase? But then also
Right.
we're in a pretty tough time and economy right now. So I'm not sure if that has been impacted. I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but I can imagine that that's probably a little bit lower these days than normal.
Well, and this is why, like, when Mina the Hollower launched this year, um, they were looking at like $20 game, right? They shipped it at $20 and they wrote out a pretty good justification of why they looked at that price versus like, I mean, that could have easily been a 25 to $30 game. I think it certainly deserved to be a 25 to $30 game. It's big enough, it's cool enough. If you haven't played Meat of the Hollower, definitely go play Meat of the Hollower. Um, but like it they were like, we're gonna ship it at $20 because we want people to not wait to for it to be on sale to buy it. Just buy it now. Now, like, could it go on sale for like a 15? Sure, but 20 is usually, I think, that borderline for a I don't want to say impulse buy, but like a oh yeah, sure, buy
Hmm.
versus a 25 and $30 game. So, um, yeah, that seems to be the thing right now. Um,
Makes
Silk's
sense.
almost $20.
Yeah, I mean that makes
Um,
sense. I'm
yeah,
typically because I'm trying to be well. One, I'm trying to be good with money now, and then two, I'm also trying to actually work through my gigantic backlog of games instead of just adding more into the queue. So for me, I'm kind of like,
Howard.
yeah, anything that's like $10 or less that somebody recommends, I usually like, okay, I'll grab that. After
Yeah,
like in the $10 to $20 range, uh, if it's something that someone highly recommends and it seems like okay, I'll get to this soon, I might buy it. But after $20, I start to kind of decide if I'm going to wait for a sale or whatever.
yeah.
But that's just because I just have so many games to play right now, and I think the only games on my agenda, Control Resident and GTA 6 are the two games that I'm eyeballing purchasing this year. But
Yeah.
besides that, I don't know if I'm gonna. I got so many games, dude. If I just played the RPGs that I've already purchased that are on my list, I could probably play through the end of next year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, easy. And yeah, those two titles I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the remaster of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee because
Mm-hmm.
I loved that game growing up when it came out on GameCube. Um, Actually, a student of mine worked on it and is doing some artwork for it. So I'm like,
Oh, nice.
okay, yeah, gotta support stuff my students worked on. Um, and yeah, I mean, whenever Ocarina of Time is coming out this fall window. So
Oh yeah, yeah. Forgot about Ocarina Time. I don't know. I've played that game so much back in the day. I don't know if I need to revisit it or not. It might
I'll
be.
always play more Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get new stuff into my brain. I can't be the old guy that only plays all the stuff that he enjoyed when he was 20 and 30.
I have no excuse. I just finished Halo Campaign Evolved,
Actually, yeah,
so
I saw you post about that, and you liked it.
I liked it a lot. The Yeah, the post on Facebook in question was me getting to the library and being like, "Oh no, the fun is literally over." And then, yeah, most improved level of in all of human history. My God. Um, yeah, they put a shine on that in the right spots, but also kept the game the same as the original version enough that you're like, "Oh yeah, this is what it was on Xbox the first time." Huh. Um, and you really remember like where some of the big epic scenes where you were like, oh, I guess that was Halo 2 and 3 and Reach and
Yeah.
things like that. Because like everything is, and I don't say this is a bad thing, it was cool going back and seeing how like, yes, you have those big expansive external spaces, but like you go inside a facility and they're all very like cramped and tiny, and it was cool because it was like, oh man, here's this like little time capsule, but not so much of a time capsule that the sort of pancaked repetitive levels that got really bad like the library were the same. So it was kind of like a more rose tinted look back at that campaign while keeping enough of it that you're like, I remember this. I remember this kind of like corridor shooter-y type game. It was cool. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I am one of the heretics of the gaming world where I just did not groove on Halo. I've played it. I've tried playing it twice, and I remember every time I get to like roughly when you're on the ring and like the little pygmy guys come out, and I was just like, I can't. I just can't. I don't know what's going on here.
I mean, I remember at the time like friends of mine who played a lot of shooters on PC. Like a buddy of mine said it this way, and I thought it was really funny, but also like true. If you're used to playing a shooter on PCs, like Master Chief is a man whose armor is filled with butter, and it controls like you are a man whose armor is filled with butter. Excuse
Bless you.
me. And like, yeah, compared to like an Unreal Tournament at the time, um, it certainly has because you're on like the twin stick and things like that, but it had these other like remarkable features that felt really good. um I like it. It's like a decent ish like sci-fi yarn.
Oh, totally. I get that I am the exception to the rule here. Most people really liked Halo, and Halo 2, Halo 1, 2, and 3 were huge, obviously. And I just, part of it
Yeah,
too is Bungie's just art style, their aesthetic style. I just don't really groove on. There's just something about it I don't like. But I realize that I am not the arbiter of what is good and what is not. It's just been my experience uh, through my time in gaming. Um, but I want to bring something up with you because I think that you and I
I
might.
would like that you were just being like, I don't like Halo that much, and then you just called yourself the Arbiter, and you are surrounded by purple. So,
Oh yeah, there you go. Ba-doom.
great.
So today, I don't know if you saw, but Warren Spector announced that he's retiring from games, and I did a video earlier today for my morning video game industry kind of show. And first of all, I just sort of wanted to thank him. He created, Deus Ex, and I think had a influence on the industry. And Deus Ex, the original one, the one from the '90s, was one of my favorite games at the time.
Hey, you keep going. I need to turn off my camera for a second.
Okay,
And so, all right, be right back.
all righty. Uh, so yeah, I am glad that Warren Spector created Deus Ex. I think that game was amazing. It's obviously by today's standards a little rough around the edges, but um, also I'm sure going into retirement after a lifetime of work in the industry, there's probably some bittersweetness to it. But did you play Deus Ex? Like I've never had a chance to meet Warren. I've always wanted to bring him to GDAX. I think he doesn't travel very much because I think he's pretty old at this point. But yeah, I just wanted to thank him and congratulations on a lifetime of making games awesome.
I've played very little Deus Ex, but am like well aware of it and its impact, and really, like it from that standpoint. Um, it is kind of one of those hallmarks of that sort of like immersive sim type of world where like a lot can happen without your intervention, and I think that's just absolutely phenomenal um, game design. I think it's such a daring title for that time, and such a cool world, cool place to be. Um, I also played Epic Mickey. I have a Epic Mickey on my desk in my Kent State office. Um, I like that game a lot. Its sort of morality system is like very bare bones. It's very like light side, dark side. But man, what a neat vision of like Mickey Mouse,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, I appreciated that they kind of went for the mischievous Mickey, um, and kind of a trickster Mickey that you saw like what was it like 6 or 7 years later in that like animated 2013 Mickey Mouse show, the 2D animated one, where Mickey is just kind of like this feral comedy goblin. It's sort of like that kind of old school version of Mickey Mouse was really neat. So I appreciated that a lot. I actually did meet Warren Spector. I have a funny story about meeting Warren Spector.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I so in 2012, I was at this little convention that a friend of mine ran in South Dakota, at Dakota State University, um, and they had this like old school board game table, like secondhand board game store table, and friend of mine and I were there, and like we saw this box that said Bullwinkle and Rocky role playing game, and it was like $15. Uh, so like this friend of mine and I were like I want to pick this up. I don't really want to spend this if it's going to be like bad, but I'm like let me look on Board Game Geek to see how it is. And like the what piqued our interest is that in the corner it said TSR. So it wasn't just like a random thing. It like TSR, for those history nerds in the audience, like you'll know that that is the company that originally published Dungeons and Dragons. So TSR made a Rocky and Bullwinkle role playing game. It was called Bullwinkle and Rocky for like some weird trademark issue. But they were like given the license. So we like looked it up to see like, oh, do we actually want to like blow $15 on it? And then we see the designers, Warren's it included Warren Spector, and we were like, oh my gosh. Um, and like a few other role playing game like legends. So we buy it. We're even saying to the guy like running the table, like, "Oh man, isn't it cool that all these people worked on it?" He goes, "Who?" And I'm like, "Hey, thanks, bye." In case like we didn't want him to be like, "Oh, that'll actually be
Yeah.
$50."
Mm-hmm.
So we like played it with some of the other folks that were at the convention like later that night. It was a good time. Um, there may have been a few beverages involved, but it was awesome. And then so I'm getting ready to go to GDC like later that year, like 2013 GDC. And that friend of mine is over at my apartment and he goes, "Hey, so are you going to take the Rocky and Bullwinkle game so Warren Spector can sign?" I'm like, dude, Warren Spector is the kind of guy that gives a keynote at GDC and then is like whisked backstage and then he does not reappear until like the boss lady's party, right? Which is, if like anybody is up on their GDC lore, like there used to be, maybe still is, I don't know, like the party that is the person who like runs GDC's like big bash, it's like the most exclusive bash
Yeah.
at GDC. Um So it's like, yeah, he's not he doesn't walk amongst us randos. So I was a CA that year, a conference associate, and we had to like badge the doors. So we have to go in. At the time, we would go in between talks, like to scan the badges for the next talk. Well, I was working the narrative summit, and I'm scanning badges, and boop, oh, hi, Mr. Spectre. Doesn't even look up at me, writing in something, like writing some notes. Hi. So I was supposed to bring something for you to sign and ended up not. What? Like, I think, and he'd probably been like tired of hearing people like
Sure.
talk about data sets, talk about Epic Mickey, talk about all these other things. So I go, Rocky and Bullwinkle, the role playing game, and he like springs up and is like, "What? What? Oh my gosh! Give me something to sign. Give me your card. Like I'll sign it. Like oh my gosh, that's amazing, Rocky and Bullwinkle." So like, um, I give him my card and he like writes on it, and I have to go, and so he's like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, I'll come out and give you this." So like a few minutes later, after the talk, he comes out, finds me, and we had like a 20-minute conversation about game design and like them making this Rocky and Bullwinkle game. Um, and it was like, I got my picture with him and everything, but yeah, it was like, yeah, that's my Warren Spector story. We bonded briefly over Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and we, and a title that not a ton of people remember him for, but is number one in my heart.
Well, there you go. Well, I think
Yeah,
the two things that kind of struck me about this. So the first is uh we we're a relatively young industry, the video game industry. And I was born in 81. I've pretty much been alive since what we consider the modern games industry. I've been there. And we're just now kind of getting to that point. Like, yeah, we've had our Ralph Bears and whatever, but we're kind of getting to that point where the first like big batch of industry leaders is going to start retiring. And
yeah.
I think a lot of folks have kind of stuck around for a while because they enjoy being in this industry. And again, I don't know how old Warren Spector is. I think he's surprisingly like older for. Might as well look it up right through the power of the internet. Um, he is according. Oh, he's only 70. Okay, but still,
Yeah.
so that's not too bad. But we're starting to see that sort of first batch of retirees from the industry, which I think is pretty. It's like simultaneously pretty amazing, but also just kind of weird to be a part of an industry that where there really haven't been a ton of retirees. Right, there haven't been a ton of. It's not like the movie industry where there's been eras of actors
Yeah.
and directors. Like we're just now kind of into it. So I thought that was just I don't know worthy of note or conversation.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I'll like tell a story about something in a class, and my college age students are like, "Is there a class on some of this where you can learn that?" And my first thought is, "Yes, and the story I just told you is in your textbook." So,
Mm-hmm.
gotcha.
Yeah. So
Um,
this is the class, but or at least one of
well,
them.
no, I don't teach that class, but it is like like yeah.
Sure.
But then there is an element to it where it was just like I was there,
Mm-hmm.
like, and if not like there, but it's like yeah, this was like in the game news. What? Oh, you were not born yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a thing where you kind of realize that it's like, huh, I guess yeah, they're all we're I think about this when I think about game teaching because we're definitely the first cohort of like games teachers. Like our field
Oh,
is
sure.
is there are folks before us, um, but I feel like the bleed between that like first Gen X cohort of game instructors and then like the millennial ones are is not there's a lot of overlap
Absolutely.
in
I mean,
like
and you can
people are
just
doing
think
work at the
about
same
like
time.
the number of degree granting programs, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like just colleges offering an actual degree in this is still relatively new. You're looking at a 10 to 15 year period for probably 80% of the degrees that you of schools that are
Mhm.
offering a degree. Like it's have happened in the past 10 to 15 years for sure.
Yeah, and you know, and we've talked about this where it's like it's old enough that it's not it's identifiably not a fad. It's young enough that we have to I think people are having to make adjustments to how they approach it to maintain it as not a fad because I think a lot of them sprang up because of like, you know, serious games funding or some other thing like that. But you know, to go along with to go back to like the Warren Spector and the retirement thing, you know, if you think about that as something so young, it really wasn't that long after the industry became an industry that that was going. And so yeah, it's a lot of these people are accessible. You know, I mean, I used to work at George Mason. George Mason employed Nolan Bushnell for like a very short period on like a in residence um, track position. You know, for those who don't speak academia, that means like usually a 12 to 18-month contract to just kind of like be a professional presence that students can learn from. Um, and so like those people are around. And that is kind of amazing. Like Don Daglow still gives like a ton of GDC talks and is kind of like likewise around.
Yeah.
So
I was
there's
I was talking to I've been going back and forth for quite a while with Brenda Romero, John Romero's wife, about getting John to
yeah.
come out to GDEX. And we were actually on target to bring him out this year, but they ended up with like a family obligation that they couldn't get out of. But like
The Romeros are really cool people. I like
yeah,
them a lot.
but just being able to like chat. I mean, I think I probably made an ass of myself. But when we were at Dice, we were trying to. I was trying to herd cats to go towards a dinner. It started out as one of those things where it's going to be like two or three people going to this dinner, and then all of a sudden, like
Yeah.
eight people are like, "Oh, can we go?" So I'm trying to navigate that, navigate the reservations, get everybody into a like a van or a taxi or an Uber to get there. And I turn around and there's like Mark Cerny, Shuhei Yoshida, like just a whole bunch of like top name people standing right behind me. And I was just like, oh shit. I was like, oh yeah, Shuhei and Mr. Yoshida. I said thanks. I was like super excited to meet you. Like I have to run because I got to herd these cats, but my name is Chris. Super excited to meet you. And I went to the event at Dice. I don't remember. It was like one of the VIP events or whatever. And I saw like a bunch of people affiliated with Last of Us, God of War, like just people around. And like you said, I have found in general on the dev side, people tend to be very approachable. Like they don't hide their email addresses generally. People in like the YouTubing sphere, content creation, like they tend to be the hardest to kind of get in a hold of, and kind of a pain in the ass to be honest. But for most people on the dev side, it's relatively easy to chat with folks.
Yeah, and I mean most of the people like there's one or two that you know, you meet him and you're like, oh man, that person was kind of a jerk, right? But yeah, same thing for the most part. And you know, Mr. Spector, Warren, I don't know, I don't know if I'm first name basis,
Yeah,
like, but he's a very nice person when I spoke with him. You know, and I think like, um, yeah, and like I said, John and Brenda, very nice people. Um, you know, most people are like really cool. It is interesting to me when I think about. I think one of the transitions we are seeing is, you know, like you could have a Warren Spector, a John Romero, a Brenda Romero, um, and those folks be these standout individuals because they were working in a much smaller industry. And I've thought about this a lot because, like, you know, I have a friend, Robin Jan Storm, who is this wonderful level designer and systems, like a tool designer and things like that. Just like total jack of every trade, amazing game designer in person, right? And he came up before one of my GDC talks one time and was like, "Yeah, somebody just called me a legend. I don't know how to feel about that." And like we kind of sat there with that, and we're like, because like he's worked on especially some really big games, and but he's never felt like because he is on I've noticed this with like a lot of my AAA friends. They are such a small part of such a big machine that made the game. It's not like with Doom or Deus Ex, and these are much smaller teams where you can kind of point and be like, "That's Warren Spector." Um, in only a few cases can you really point at somebody and be like, "Ah, that person did all of this."
Yeah.
And so I noticed a lot of my AAA friends are kind of like, yeah, I did a little thing here, and and stuff like that, because game development has gotten so big, and also like there are so many games, that yeah, he was a little like surprised somebody would like, oh my gosh, so and so. But I think what we realize is that there is very much a our generation is not going to be the ones that get famous on one game, right? But it's almost like you get known in the industry, and I tell my students this. I'm like, just show up, just be around, just be part of communities. Like, we do this stuff with, Ohio game development, and that's a scene, right? Um,
Yeah.
and like just going to GDC, being around, like being identifiable. Those I think that's going to be where you see people like I don't know. I don't know if you're going to have legends like a Warren Spector again. But you will have like people who kind of keep the lights on
Yeah.
and help others keep the lights on.
So I
Um,
have a little theory. You want to hear it?
sure.
So I could be, again, I don't know anything, right? I just say stuff, but it's my show, so here we are.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that just looking at what the video game industry is doing right now and all the layoffs, all this consolidation, I think you are right. I think in the AAA space, there's only really so much room for like you can only have so many like Hideo Kojimas or whatever, right? There's only going to be so many of those.
And
But I
even then, he got in much earlier,
Oh, totally. Yeah. Even
right?
then, like he built up. It took 30 years of him building up from the 80s until Konami threw him out on his ass. Uh, but I feel like there might be a and maybe it's just I'm still stuck on sort of Claire Obscure here. I think there may be sort of a rise of these like 20 to 50 person studios that work on really tight controlled experiences and are able to build sustainable businesses off of them. And I think we might see some folks, even somebody like maybe like a Jonathan Blow. I don't know how big his studio is now. His next game's coming out, I think, in September. But even folks that are kind of like in that space or an Ed McMullen or whatever, like I think having those teams of 10, 20 to 50 at the max people allows folks to stand out a little more and to sort of stretch your creative muscles. Because once you're in a studio that's hundreds, if not 1,000 people, it's like you said, you're just going to be one cog. Even if you're like director of whatever, you're still one of 18 directors, and it's just you're just going to fall into there somewhere. So I think that there's going to be a rise of these like small to middle tier studios. The question I'm having is how is the funding mechanism going to work? Because you sort of mentioned Hollywood. We talked about movies. Hollywood is like, oh hey, here is a script. Here is a director. I'm obviously oversimplifying very much here, but here's a script. Here's a director. Maybe you got a couple stars to sign on. Studio gives you money to make the product. Nowadays, if you are not somebody that's already well known and you already have ins, like you pretty much need to have the product close to done before a publisher or investor will even look at you. And like
Yeah.
that's not a sustainable way to keep products coming out. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, how do we get that sort of funding model to maybe more mimic what happens in movies a little bit? Uh, but I don't. That's my thought on it.
No, I mean we've talked about that on our team of like yeah, that sort of Hollywood like model would be so much better because yeah, you go and you pitch to publishers and it's kind of like, but we're not quite ready there yet. Can you keep doing? They don't say this way, but it essentially boils down to like, can you keep working for free and make more for us, and then we'll talk again? It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And the first few times you have that conversation, you might be like, okay, yeah, and then eventually you're just like, what? And yeah, getting funding is such a crapshoot. And you honestly get to a point where you look at each other and you say, what if we just kept like a little nest egg and got our own marketing, right? Like, what do we need this publisher for? And because now there's like places where you could go and like a limited run or a Lost in Cult or a super rare games where, like if you want it in a box, you can find somebody to put it in a box
Mm-hmm.
for you, right? So, yeah, the publisher model, especially in the indie space, is very weird, and I wish it was better. And when you hear about all these stories of like publishers not paying their developers and during milestones that they hit and things like that, it gets really like, um, it's it is in a weird place. But yeah, I agree. I think, well, case in point, I was playing Halo again, and I'm like, this game is made really smart. Like it yes, there's parts of it where you're like, this is the same map, kind of copy paste. Um, but at least the stuff that they left in, and in the old version, the original version, there were parts where it was like grueling because of that library. Um, but there are also parts of it where it's kind of like, the first level and the last level are the same, have the same kind of like, they kind of copy pasted the file and like rejiggered it so you have to go through it again. And there's like, if you can do that well, um, and I think Halos is noticeable, but if you can do that well, you can actually get a lot of content that way. And it makes the game tighter and more concise. And Halo's not long. It's not a long game. But yeah, you mentioned Clair Obscur. Clair Obscur is not a long game. It's 30 hours, which is like a long Super Nintendo game, but is not a long modern RPG. But it also like was nice for that reason.
Sure.
It didn't feel padded out. It didn't feel like there was extraneous stuff. If you wanted to go find the extraneous stuff, you had to go find it. It was your choice to go to it. Whereas, like, I mean, spoilers for the game, like light spoilers. Act 3 is basically go get that guy. There's like no story. It's just go get him.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that
And,
that's one of my complaints about that game. I don't have a lot, but I feel like Act 3, because there's again, I'm not gonna say there's a couple things like you said that you can find out, like with a part of the relationship system where there's some quests associated with that. I probably would have been like, okay, let's have those two things or three things, whatever it is, be a part of that act, and then have the endpoint. Because one of the biggest issues with Clair Obscur that I've noticed as I watch people play it from a reaction standpoint is they start digging into chapter 3 and or act 3 or whatever you want to call it, and they start doing all the side stuff. So by the time they get around to the last boss, they just fucking body them because the last
oh,
boss is
see, that's my favorite thing about Clair Obscur. Because I love see like if I'm playing a Japanese style role playing game,
mm-hmm.
right? I'm not playing against anybody. I'm not, and this is like totally just opinion and preference, personal preference. I love being able to go body Kefka or Sephiroth or somebody because I've
Oh, sure.
done this other grind. Like
I
I
don't have
love
a I
breaking.
don't have a problem with that. I just think there's enough content in Act 3 that you could do a couple more things, still have the Act 3 boss be a little bit challenging, but if you went ahead and did the other stuff, you could still then go to town on them. There's enough
Yeah,
content in there that I think you could have done just a little bit more to kind of give some Act 3 meat to its bones. But
sure.
it's a minor gripe on my end.
Because yeah, no, I mean, I again, I like that Act Three was so concise in that the main quest is like go get him. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna want to go do this thing and that thing
Yeah,
at
and I
least,
think if you
right?
added up all the stuff I'm talking about, it's maybe 2 hours, 3 hours at most of content
Yeah.
that you would add to
Well, and
Act
the other
Three.
thing that I really like about Act Three though is see, because to me it doesn't feel accidental, right?
Sure.
And this is what I tell my students is like, look, they can somebody in design, somebody can disagree with your approach, but if it's intent, if it feels intentional, you're not wrong. That just might be their preference is not to have done it the way you did it,
Hmm.
but you didn't do it a bad way. And I think that's kind of where I land on it is that like sure those could have been story points and that could have added to the richness of it, but at the same time what makes it so delightfully intentional to me is that up until that point you this is a little bit more of a spoiler. You can't you top out at a certain amount of damage.
Yeah.
You that limit is broken and the game is just like, hey,
Have at it.
play with systems.
Yep.
Just play. And then, everything where, you're kind of like scrabbling for resources through acts 1 and 2, you're like, hey, you saw a cool dog, like, and then you can be like, what, and then just like beef everybody up. The game just wants you to explore the world and beef everybody up and then just like go steamroll
I would 100% agree with you with the slight
that.
caveat that at the very
Yeah,
end there are specific story moments that are completely skipped if you're too strong. And so yeah, that's and I think those story moments are like those little interjections and the dialogue back and forth. I think add a lot to the narrative weight and the flow of what's happening at
yeah,
the end. And if you're way too
yeah.
strong and you're just like boom, you don't even get to see him. But so real
So,
fast, just because we're did you have a last thought on that? Because I want to hit one more thing too before we.
oh no, all I was gonna say is like, yeah, I mean, it I don't know, like, because again, it's one of those like personal preference things, and I agree with all of it. I also just like gleefully cackled through the whole thing.
Oh,
So it's
I
like,
I
yeah,
love that game. I love every second of
and
that
and I,
game.
I just like that it. This is gonna sound weird. It was nice that it was over, and not because it was bad. It was like a smorgasbord of amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was playing Final Fantasy VI again,
Sure.
but it was like, oh, the game can just be done. I don't have to invest 200 hours into this.
Totally. That's been the big thing about everyone's like, oh, you got to play Baldur's Gate 3. And I was like, I just don't have 100 to 200 hours to clamp
Right.
onto this thing.
The- I think the thing that I like about the thing with Claire Obscure, I want to play it again now.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like, and yes, people do like a bajillion runs of Baldur's Gate. But it's like no, 30 hours. And I hear about people's other playthroughs where they're maximizing their other team members. I'm like, oh, I want to play that. I want to try that way. And it's like, oh, I could do it because it's just boom, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I appreciate about it is that it just ends, but then you want to do it again,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that the way the game functions rewards you playing a second time just because now you're able to piece a lot of the conversations and things together for sure. Um,
That back to the original point though, I think we've had enough of those kind of releases like Claire Obscure, Star Fox, the new old Star Fox, where it's just like arc, let me do a run, like
mhm.
30 minutes, boom, you got to play Star Fox. Um, but I want to do it again. Like I think Halo, like I'm like, oh man, I miss these games where I could just like they're short and small
Yeah.
and clever. And oh, there's a little thing that was reused, but it's clever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's one of the things about Cyberpunk that like I love that game, and every time I beat it, I'm just like, oh man, I would love for there to be like just a little bit more content. But as an RPG, even with the I think with the expansion, it's like 35, 40 hours, real tight,
great.
and I'm totally into it. So going all the way back to Warren and Deus Ex, one of the things I kind of want to ping your brain about, we've talked about this before, both on the show and in real life, but one of the things that Deus Ex did, by today's standards, the original Deus Ex is like a chunky mess. Like it's, it's got its issues, but
I love those.
it was back in some of those days where developers and just computer engineers in general were trying to think about cool ways to use this technology to make these experiences. And so Deus Ex is all about like, okay, how do we formulate actual meaningful decisions that aren't necessarily through dialogue trees? Like what happens if you kill this character at this point? What can happen? How do you interact by going through this level in this way? And this is one of the things that I'm really curious about GTA 6 about, because I think if any games or any studio is willing to put in the effort on like the simulation side of stuff, it's going to be Rockstar. I think that's something they really pride themselves on generally. And just having developers like Warren Spector create things like Deus Ex and whatever, at least keep the ideas alive of, hey, we have these tools where we can make some really interesting worlds with really unique interactions that we just don't see at the AAA level. Like I think a lot of our AAA experiences are just like very tight, like first person shooter, go, like, so one of my hopes wrapping in both, Deus Ex and Warren Spector and also GTA 6 is, can we maybe pull back from the graphics a little bit, and maybe this AI crunch killing graphics card pricing might help where people start focus, because CPUs right now are cheaper than GPUs in general, kind of like pound for pound.
Yeah.
Maybe we will start making more interesting simulation based experiences, and hopefully maybe for a couple of years, like graphics are good. Like Claire Obscure looks fucking amazing for a team of 30, 40 people.
Yeah.
Is that, do you feel me on that? Am I like kind of off base of just like, what can we use this technology for that's different than what we've been doing? Maybe.
Well, I mean, I think that's entirely what we've been talking about, which is like when I was in grad school, and people who've seen my work and have listened to previous episodes of this podcast know, like, I went to architecture school. Um, I remember our dean at the time saying, like, man, I'm really tired of seeing these thesis projects for like grad students that are like a convention center, a library, just like big buildings, right? Like big honking buildings. He's like, because he's like, I want like a cabin or a hut, but I want to see every detail worked out. Like how surfaces join, how a window is hung, because like when you're doing a big building, you're doing like big general swings at the structure system, but you're not
Mm-hmm.
looking at like individual, like, hey, the wall has to go up and how is that wall section working, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's games, right? And again, I'm going to take it back to that playthrough of Halo I just did. I was, we were sometimes when somebody is working on Nemo, and they're kind of co-working and having Discord general chat on, like I'll hop in and just like, hang out with people, right? Or like if I'm working, then we can co-work and things like that. It's really nice. It's a fun way to work. But I did that while like I've been playing certain video games, and there I was mentioning, I was like, this game is small, but like I could pick up any gun. Like this is on the back of the box. Pick up any gun. Oh, pilot any vehicle, right? Like I can just hop on a ghost and or in a banshee and fly around, you know. Um, and it's cool that when there's like an elite and a group of grunts, I can kill the elite, and then the grunts like freak out
Yeah.
and react in a few different ways. I love that. And the tightness of that game lets there be those tricks. And yeah, to your point, like when you play a GTA, like GTA 5 is huge. GTA and but it's all like you could spend 10 hours playing that game and you see all these like specific plot set pieces and they're amazing and wonderful and lovely, but like, does the world kind of that's what makes Deus Ex cool is that the world just kind of goes and
Hmm.
you're like in the middle of this petri dish, right? Little Conway's Game of Life thing going. And you don't see that as much, and you don't see like puzzle pieces to play. A game. Oh man, me and some of the other dads at the bus stop were talking today about like all our kids are addicted to this game called Wobbly Life.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
Right, yeah, no, but like it's one of those things where it's like if I showed you a picture of the cover graphic, you'd be like, I've seen that. Like I've seen that on like my TV or on like the App Store thing. It's basically like GTA for kids
Okay.
with like this kind of stick figure looking guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, but it's a playground. And I don't think we make playgrounds as much anymore.
Yep.
And and that's how you get those games to last for so like Claire Obscure. That's what I think is brilliant about chapter 3 is that it becomes like yes, the story that you are required to do is minimal, but you have the choices to pursue these other storylines, which you're gonna. They clearly put budget into it because they're like people are gonna go this way
Hmm.
instead of that way. Like they know, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost like unrequired required. But then that's the other cool thing is that they give you all the things that let you beef up your characters because it ceases to become this sort of strung through
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
AAA experience and just becomes a playground. And I
Until
love
you go
that.
fight Simon and then he beats your ass into the ground. Um,
No, that's fine. But again, I love that in RPGs where it's just
yeah.
like, okay, no, but go monkey with the here's like every thing you need to start tinkering with your build.
Hmm.
Tinker with your build. Like it's so good, right?
Absolutely.
Um
One of my YouTubers again. She's I don't know how old she is. I would guess maybe mid 20s, and she started playing the original Metal Gear Solid, and there were
mhm.
numerous times where like her mind was blown because we've gotten so used to how games have sort of tunneled us down into just a basic functionality of what we expect from a game that when Metal Gear I hate to say demanded, but like Metal Gear opened up the opportunities for her to solve problems in different kind of ways
Yeah.
that it really got her thinking. And this is the first Metal Gear Solid. She's like, I can't wait to play two. I was like, two, such a big jump over like the kind of things you can do. And
Yeah.
like, it'll probably be a year before she gets to Metal Gear 5. But I think Metal Gear Solid 5 is one of the best mechanically created games ever. Like the stuff you can do
Yeah.
in that game and how you can mess around with the AI, it's nuts.
Well, I mean, that's why I love three. Three is
Oh,
like there's
sure.
so many like little pieces and parts and systems, but it's like concise too. Like it doesn't feel like it's too big. There's just like, every boss in Metal Gear is good at this where it's like, "Oh, but did you know that if you did this with the boss?" Like and then there's the big moments like to take the controller out of port 1 into port 2.
Yeah,
But there's like little things like, "Did you know that if you did this in front of the pane, he would do that?" And it's like um
sure.
I love that series for that. But again, I was playing Delta, the remake of
Hmm.
3, and you're playing and you're like, this is a PlayStation 2 scaled game. And that's why it works
Yeah.
because there's these details that, I always think of these in terms of Mario 3 because Mario 3 did that and like that's a Nintendo game, it's a different beast, but Mario 3 like this is where it baked into my brain that like games could have these weird little secrets like did you know if you ducked on the white block for 5 seconds, you'd go behind the foreground. Like, and I think those little. Did you know that if you kick a Koopa shell in that game 1 block away from a wall, the Koopa shell will not hit you, right? And it's totally because of collision and frame rate and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But it becomes a trick, right? Like they've level designed around it in some cases, and like those little things, like you see that in Metal Gear, you see that in Halo, you see that in these other games. You don't see them now
Yeah.
because we're just trying to make content and not a toy, And this
Yeah.
is, like games are art, games are, yeah, yes, yes, but the player experience and agency that makes this special is its playfulness and its toyness. And I think that's what we've lost. So I'm hoping that we are making, we can go back and make smaller things that are like toys, still artistically fulfilling and things like that, but that helps you, that lets it be sticky and lets you try again and lets you, yeah, like
Yeah.
keep your budget down.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that the financial elements might force studios because thinking about like Grand Theft Auto, it really although the GTA 3 was not the first open world game, it was the first I think large acclaim open world game, and every
Yeah.
game after that had to be open world, and it was just like Vice City was twice the size of GTA 3's map, and then San Andreas was like twice the size of Vice City's map, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and Ubisoft was doing the same thing. And I think eventually, and actually, I think The Witcher 3 kind of, even though it had a big map, uh, companies started realizing we need to create like an actual experience. It can't just be a big map. There needs to be experiences in this. And again, just to toot Claire Obscure's horn again, the map and the areas aren't that big, but it's like around every corner there's some new creative decision. The mechanic is being used in some interesting way. And so there's a couple annoying parts in it just because of how whatever the thing is you have to do is kind of frustrating
Yeah.
sometimes. But they're not reusing. It's not like I always pick on Ubisoft, but it's not like go to this area, climb up the tower, get the view of the tower. Oh, now all the icons pop up. Now you go to each icon. Here's the follower quest. Here's the retrieval quest. Like there are no quests like that in Clair Obscur.
I love it might be one of my favorite games I've ever played.
Oh, it's up
um,
there for me for sure.
um, well, I was even going to talk about another game, but yes, also Clair Obscur.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Well, then
man,
maybe your
love
game
that
too.
game. Well, I was going to say like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I really love that game.
I haven't played
Um,
it, but I've heard great things.
it is triple A. It's dripping with triple A ness, right? Because it's Bethesda and Indiana Jones. It's wonderful, but it has some of the best design. I think like the Vatican level is like among the best designed levels I've ever seen. But like you do that level, and you're like, oh man, it's so interesting. Like, oh, I've got to go. You know, I can level myself up by like buying books, right? That's cool. I can at the book stall. Somebody, the Nazis or the fascists, because it's, you're in Italy, the fascists have stolen the medicine, from the doctor's office. I better go get the medicine, right? And so you're kind of like into this level, and then you go to the next. You're like, oh, we're gonna go to Egypt now. Whoa, what's gonna be here in Egypt? The Nazis have stolen the medicine. Wait a minute.
Those Nazis.
Those darn Aye, it's like they all have the same plan. What? And again, it's great, it's fine, but even those kind of things where you're like, triple A,
Mm-hmm.
you have to reuse the thing. And yeah, like there have been times when I've racked my brains like they could just make it a different 3D model. Be
Yeah.
like, you have to go get my cigarettes or the children's, like the toys from the children hospital, like but yeah, so it's interesting where you do see the systems repeat, and again, that's a very small gripe. Like that's a side quest and the main content is like all kinds of new, interesting, novel things, but you do start to see the fraying at the edges, and it is because you made a you made an Indiana Jones movie, a video game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's incredible for that. But like, you can see where, okay, we're filling things out, and I think, yeah, again, smaller dev studios do that too. I just lauded Halo and Clair Obscur for like keeping it tight and maybe having a few repetitive things, but short repetitive things. So like Indiana Jones is doing it too, but you do see where, um, you know, in those AAA spaces, it starts to fray, and it's like really obvious versus like kind of like remixing, right?
Yeah.
And like that sort of musical remix culture. The Legos, I guess, what am I saying? What am I trying to say? I saw this clever post once by one of the lead designers from Eugenics. And he said there are Lego mechanics and action figure mechanics. And Lego mechanics are mechanics that are not very interesting on their own, but you can uh, build them into all kinds of clever combinations. And then there are action figure mechanics that are like you can only with this Spider-Man action figure you can only do Spider-Man things because it's kind of like baked into the use of it versus like a Lego.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really clever and really true. And I think AAA builds a lot of action figures, but then you see the action figures again and again. You're like, that's just that same action figure in a top hat. Um, versus, I think Nintendo is really good at Legos because, like, I remember in Mario Odyssey, you have a dinosaur. If something is wearing a hat, you cannot put Cappy on it. So you're just kind of like you got to fight the thing or run away from it. Dinosaurs have a behavior. Normally you can put Cappy on the dinosaur and do dinosaur things, but then there was like one bonus level where you dropped into it and then a dinosaur wearing a cowboy hat or something like that appeared and you had to run from it. And I'm like, that's so good. They just like they took the dinosaur Lego and some smashable wall Legos and a cowboy hat Lego, and then the dinosaur did what it's programmed to do, which is chase you and smash the walls and you have to run. I'm like, lovely, great.
Sure.
And I think Nintendo's good at Legos. Small studios that are trying to make a lot of content out of a little are good at Legos, but you don't see Legos anymore in the super Gigantamax AAA space. And I think that's where you are starting to see like the budgets inflate, graphics don't help the thing inflate, and people are like smaller games made by less people for fewer dollars, please.
Yeah. I totally hear you. I think that if you can make Clair Obscur Expedition 33 for $10 million and have a game that friggin' good, then there's no excuse for anybody else. So, yeah, Tom, I know the display is going to get a little funky. Well, Chris, we got to stop here. We're at the end of our time. Thank you so much for being on the show. I always enjoy talking to you. I think every time we do this, it's like we could probably talk for another 2 hours.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I ended on the on the quote. That's not the smaller games made by fewer people for less money. I can't take credit for that one. That's Rami Ismail. But yeah, no, I was like that. Let's end on that.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this has been episode 117 of the Sandbox.Space weekly podcast. Reminder, we do this every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on the GDEX Twitch, and then we post these videos to our Sandbox YouTube channel, where you can also do podcasting now. So we are on Apple and Spotify podcasts, so make sure to check us out, save, like, share, all that fun stuff. And a reminder, GDEX is coming up, so thegdex.com. Make sure to check that out. We would love to see you there. Lots of exciting activities. So for now, on behalf of myself, Baby Pumpkin, everybody in the chat, and our special guest, Chris, I want to thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.